In the 18th century, working in a Champagne wine cellar was more dangerous than working at a gunpowder factory. Bottles were exploding one after another, shards flying straight into people's faces. And the wine that today is seen as a symbol of celebration was back then perceived almost like a curse. It was called the devil's wine. Today, we're going to break down how a cold region, a chain of accidents, and brilliant marketing turned this devil's wine into the most expensive drink on the planet. Welcome to the story of Champagne. To understand why Champagne became what it is, we need to look at the map of France a few centuries ago. The Champagne region, northeast of France. Grapes were grown here, but under far more difficult conditions than in Bordeaux or Burgundy, neighboring regions with ideal geography for wine. In Champagne, because of the cold climate and short summers, grapes often didn't have time to fully ripen, and this directly affected the wine. It turned out lighter, more acidic, and, most importantly, unpredictable. Let's pause for a moment to understand how wine is made in the first place. You take grape juice. It contains sugar. Yeast gets into it and starts eating that sugar. In the process, alcohol and carbon dioxide are produced. Normally, in vats, the gas simply escapes into the atmosphere, and you get still wine. But in the cold climate of Champagne, something went wrong. In autumn, it became so cold that the yeast fell asleep before finishing all the sugar. Winemakers thought fermentation was over, bottled the wine, and sent it down into the cellars. In spring, when it warmed up, the yeast woke up and started the process again. Fermentation resumed right inside the sealed bottle. The gas had nowhere to go. Pressure kept building, and the glass bottles of that time were fragile. It only took one bottle to burst for a chain reaction to blow up the entire cellar. Winemakers would go down into the cellars wearing iron masks, almost like knights, so that a shard of glass wouldn't knock out their eye. This wine was considered cursed. It was unpredictable. But the problem wasn't only the bubbles. Because of the climate, grapes ripened differently every year. The wine could be too acidic, too weak, or simply unsuccessful. And at this moment in Champagne's history, a man appears, not to create a legend, but to bring order. Dom Pérignon, a Benedictine monk of the Abbey of Haut-Villers, lived and worked in Champagne and was responsible for wine production. His task was to make sure that Champagne wine would stop being a constant lottery. And he starts with the most important thing, stability. Instead of relying on a single grape, he begins blending them. This is how blending appears, a way to assemble a more even, predictable taste from different sources. He improves pressing, making the wine cleaner, more precise. He begins using natural cork from oak bark. Before that, bottles were simply sealed with cloth soaked in oil. And then, something important happens. For the first time in Champagne, a product appears that can be repeated. The bubbles don't disappear. And now, it's no longer just bad wine with a defect, but good wine with quirks. But while the French hated the bubbles, someone else became interested in them. The English. In the 17th century, wine from France was shipped to England in barrels. There, it was bottled. And the English noticed the wine had a sparkle, and they absolutely loved it. On top of that, the English had a secret weapon. Their coal-fired furnaces reached much higher temperatures than wood-fired ones in France. As a result, English glass was many times stronger. It was English glass, and the English taste for fizz, that gave Champagne a chance to survive. In the 18th century, the wind shifted. On the French throne was Louis XV, and at his court, Madame de Pompadour. She adored champagne. She said it was the only wine after which a woman remains beautiful. Champagne instantly became the drink of the aristocracy because it was expensive. And it was expensive because production remained complex, dangerous, and unpredictable. Half the bottles could still explode in the cellar. To drink champagne meant to demonstrate your status, a drink for those who could afford to quite literally shoot money into the air. At this time, the great houses are born. Ruinart in 1729 in Reims, later Moet in Epernay, and Heidsieck, again in Reims, in the very heart of Champagne. Champagne begins to turn from an accidental product into an international brand. But there was one problem that prevented champagne from becoming truly both mass and elite at the same time: cloudiness. You see, the yeast that consumed the sugar and created the gas eventually dies and settles as sediment. The wine in the bottle looked like a dirty puddle with flakes. To drink it, you had to carefully pour it into another vessel, losing precious gas. And this is where we meet the woman who changed the game, Barbe Nicole Clicquot, the Widow Clicquot. At 27, she was left alone with a small daughter and her husband's unprofitable wine business. Around her, Napoleonic wars, blockades, chaos. Men around her told her, "Give it up. This is not a woman's business." She didn't listen. She invented the riddling method, a way to remove sediment from champagne. The idea is simple. The bottles are turned a little every day until all the sediment slides down to the cork. Then the neck is frozen, the cork is removed together with the sediment, and voila! The wine is perfectly clear. It was an industrial breakthrough. Clicquot made champagne beautiful in the glass. And, showing real boldness, in 1814 she sent a ship of wine to Russia, bypassing all naval blockades. The Russian aristocracy fell in love with Clicquot. From that moment on, champagne became the global standard of celebration. So, how is champagne made today? Now, it's no longer a lottery with risk to life, but the highest level of precision. After harvest and the first fermentation, the winemaker creates a cuvée, a blend of different wines. This is alchemy. Then, a liqueur de tirage, a mixture of sugar and yeast, is added to the bottle, and it is sealed with a temporary metal cap. Secondary fermentation happens right inside the bottle. Champagne rests in cool cellars for at least 15 months, and sometimes decades. During this time, magic happens. Autolysis. Dead yeast gives the wine aromas of baked goods, brioche, roasted nuts. This is what we pay hundreds of dollars for. It's not just wine with carbonation. It's time locked inside glass. But there is one detail that makes champagne, and it's not the bubbles. Gradually, the world filled up with imitations of champagne. The winemakers of the region took a radical step. They were among the first to secure strict protection of the appellation of origin. After World War I, it was legally recognized that champagne can only be called wine that is made in the Champagne region, from specific grape varieties, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, strictly using the traditional method of secondary fermentation in the bottle. Today, the Champagne Committee is one of the most aggressive legal organizations in the world. They sued Yves Saint Laurent for releasing a perfume called Champagne. They make sure that no one dares to use this name for cheap, sparkling wine. Because champagne is not just a liquid, it is a club of the chosen. The story of champagne is a journey from a mistake of nature to a symbol of success. It won because it managed to combine everything: the randomness of a cold climate, monastic discipline, British technology, female business instinct, and brilliant marketing. Next time you hear the pop of a bottle opening, remember, in that sound there's the echo of hundreds of exploding cellars and centuries of human stubbornness. Because to create something truly great, sometimes you simply have to not be afraid of pressure. Thank you for watching. Raise your glasses to your victories, and see you in the next stories.